defining emerging as like nailing Jell-O to a wall.
The emerging church has developed primarily as a grassroots movement over the past 20 to 30 years. It began in Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom at the initiative of groups who wanted to contextualize the idea of church to the unique needs of their communities. The development of the emerging church has paralleled our transition into a postmodern world. By definition, emerging churches only exist within postmodern culture, which signifies our need to understand some basic tenets of postmodernism. First, there is no longer one right way to act or believe. And second, faith tends to be born out of our own experiences. And so the emergent church answers the question that a postmodern world is asking. While there is no emergent church formula, a common characteristic among all of them is that they are highly relationship-based, which is one of the reasons for the global spread of this ethos. The emerging church's idea of evangelism is quite different from that of more traditional churches. In a nutshell, while the traditional evangelism emphasizes correct belief or orthodoxy, the emerging church's evangelism emphasizes correct conduct or orthopraxy. The evangelism of the emerging church emphasizes that the people in the community live out the life of the incarnate Jesus in the kingdom he is already ushering in. This incarnate Jesus urges people to love God, the creation, self, and one another, and to serve those who are in need. The theology behind their evangelism is that people change only when they participate in the actions of following Jesus' example in a faith-based community, and see, through their own experiences, that Jesus and the power of the Spirit are real and active in the midst of their fellowship, as well as in their own spiritual pursuit. Therefore, the community's life of worship, fellowship, and mission itself is the emerging church's idea of evangelism, instead of the traditional evangelism that leads a person to an intellectual recognition of faith. Their evangelism relies on human sensory perception to realize God in the person's life and in the life of the community. Embracing interests and talents of the people in their neighborhood or community is a primary characteristic of the emerging church movement. The manner in which this is manifested is eclectic and unique to each church. Perhaps the best way to understand the ethos of the emerging church is to look at a few examples. Church of the Apostles in Seattle, Washington engages culture through providing a place for the creative community to create and celebrate throughout the week. The church is a part of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, as well as the Episcopal Diocese of Olympia. They moved into an old brick building, which was built in 1914 as St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Eventually, they purchased the building and it quickly became more of a community center, a third place where people from the neighborhood felt comfortable to connect with others, express their creativity, or sit alone and read with a cup of coffee, and they just happened to have a Eucharist service at 5 p.m. on Sunday nights. This building is a church, but it is primarily a community arts center for individuals of all ages. Mosaic in Hollywood is another church that engages culture as part of its worship and presence in the city. Within the Sunday worship experience, they set up a space using the gifts and creativity of attendees. As you walk up to the building from the parking garage, one sees an art installation that promotes the current sermon series and the service times. Community and conversation is encouraged from the outset with the outdoor coffee house setting. Local culture is brought into the church through the talent of different church members, which enhances the social setting and encourages hanging out prior to the start of the service. The use of culture amidst the worship services takes the participants to a deeper level of contemplation and engaging God in our world. Mosaic hosts community events as a way of engaging local artists and others outside of their church as well. Decoupage is a small newer church in Madrid, Spain that meets in its members' living rooms in a cool neighborhood called Malasaña. It was started by two American expats who wanted to provide a Christian community for artists in their neighborhood. They meet weekly to eat, worship, and study together. And when they're together, they share their art and discuss the things that move them that week. Throughout the rest of the week, they're collaborating on community service and art projects, always reaching out to others, Christians and non-Christians alike. Their idea is that by making excellent artwork and living in Christ-centered community for all to see, they're fulfilling their part of God's kingdom work. These are just three of countless communities of Christians who engage the neighborhoods around them through cultural expression. The embracing of culture provides opportunities to share the good news with the people around them. Perhaps what is most revolutionary about the emerging church is their belief that unity in the church does not require uniformity. Each emerging church is able to adapt to its specific context, which may ruffle some feathers among the more liturgical folks, but is arguably more reflective of the pattern of the first century church. For traditional churches looking for ways to embed more deeply in their communities, there's much to be gleaned from the philosophy and work of the emergent church.